Our final writer this evening, Christine Swanberg, has published prolifically in journals and received many awards not only for her poetry, but for work in her community. She's reading from her most recent book with the irresistible title, Wild Fruition, Sonnets, Spells, and Other Incantations. It's $10, and Frank, Barbara, Ray, and I selected her because her words do cast spells and incantations, and they're sometimes wild and sometimes just beautiful. Christine Swanberg.
Thank you. I also am mic challenged, obviously.
Well, that was me.
Well, but still,
Okay.
it happened on my time, right? Yes. I always feel so affirmed here, and I'm so grateful for this kind of an audience and this kind of a venue. So thank you very much for this. I'm going to begin with a poem called Bridges, and I like to tell people how these came about a little bit. This one came about very simply. A friend who was an editor, Glenda Bailey-Mershon, some of you may know her, said, you know, we're going to do a book called Bridges and Borders. Would you write a poem about bridges, please? I thought, well, I don't know where that's going to go. And that's where the magic is. You don't know where it's going to go. Bridges. My first memory of them is the Lincoln Bridge that glides over the Illinois River in LaSalle, Peru, a stretch between the coal mines of Spring Valley and the green leafy canopy of elms of the rich northern city, where my father escaped to find a better life. Forgive me, I have always been thankful for his choice, not to live amongst the tree-laden shanties of coal towns, mean old men, and small mines. I too have no wish to return. The bridge and its wide expanse of water remain the only beauty I carry from that bleak place. Yet I still seek bridges away from my northern city, for bridges stretch like hope, transitions to the place you must go to save yourself. When you are in some sad space, think about the bridges you have already known. In the Ticino, small stone Roman bridges arch over blue pools of mountain waters that rush each spring when snow gushes from peaks. In summer, languid bathers stretch on rocks beneath such bridges, the air so fresh and clean it frees the breath. The Bridge of Lions crests over the Matanzas River in St. Augustine, where dolphins dance near boats with black sails. Invoke the bridges you have known when you seem stuck on a confounding shore. Recall them, small bridges on winding roads where only one car can pass at a time, or magnificent bridges like the ones you find in great cities. Call upon the one that stands foremost above your mind's swirling rivers. Ask that bridge for the answer you seek. Feel it carry you on its sleek steel spine. Know that no matter how tense and turbulent the waters spin, you want to keep living in a world where bridges keep their promises. They take you to the place you need to go. Thank you. One of the themes in this collection is the idea of being frankly past your prime. And David Getchick, the publisher of Puddin'head Press, is here and has always had a kind of a interesting way of looking at the way we put books together. And so I thank him also for letting me publish my past my prime poems. And this one is called One October Morning Past Your Prime. Can you all hear okay? Okay, because I feel like I'm puffing in here a little bit. There may come a moment, face to face with destiny, the flash of insight that if everything stayed exactly as it is, you would be complete. The futile wish to keep from changing. Call it gratitude or call it melancholy, the lightning knowing things are as good as they are going to get. Does the flicker circling the locust's last golden leaves this October morning feel the same within its wings and bones? Will the solitary dove overstay again this year? Will the old demented fox running sideways to catch a squirrel finally come no more to the russet prairie grasses, graceful in their temporary dying? Somewhere in the sinews of our used monoliths of muscles, we who have moved past our prime know we are the lucky ones to come this far and live so well amongst the trees and grasses, leaf fall and chilly breeze. And along that line, one January morning past your prime, which is even worse because it's winter. So, -6 degrees, frozen ribbon of dusky red behind the trees this sunrise. Sun on window pane terrarium, ferns, sparkling diamond seas, lalique birds floating over crystal mountains. Wrapped, warm in your white robe, coffee with cream, engines starting slowly, but starting. This day when most stress and striving leaves footprints behind you, heading to the finish line, more like a turtle than a hare. Marvel at destiny, good fortune, despite the sharpest pack of obstacles on your back. You stood the course. Perseverance, a life coach shouting behind the scenes. How you kept your promises to arrive here this cold morning past your prime in your warm house, free from mortgage or wayward desire that fueled the person you used to be before you saw the world, before your loves, your scars, your betrayals, and your compromises, the hard-won victories, windfalls that flew in like wayward swans, myriad kindnesses like flocks of sparrows. The casino still jingles. Your bets are hedged toward more, a bird or two in your pocket. Marvel at the cardinal that endures sub-zero, bright red and full of fervor, waiting to take flight one more time. I found the last the last year in particular, politically very difficult. You think, right? And it's particularly hard when you don't really buy into any group speak, either side, when you're sort of like, no, that's not the way. And so I think in this poem, which is also set in the dead of winter, shortly after the inauguration, that I was just speaking for myself. I wasn't speaking for any political group or party or anything else. And I think, frankly, that's important for poets. And it's called Still Life. Dawn brings 7 doves to scavenge leftover seeds on the ground below the feeder this gray winter day. A day that begins like a black and white photo. Then the coffee and table cream, the greeting of the cat who wants her dollop, nearly still in the shadowy kitchen this hazy winter day. Except for the cat's tongue lapping her treat, our happy morning ritual. I pray and imagine the day before us, stillness settling like a light comforter, even on this bleak winter day. Here, in a crime-filled city, in a bankrupt state, and now a leader who has been compared to the Joker and Hitler. How to keep from getting swept beyond reason in an age too full of misinformation and panic. How to ward off despair and wait for some good news, or at least a hopeful gesture. How to lower my standards of civility to keep claim on the stillness I have worked so hard to find and for so long. The cat's detachment, wired into her DNA, lifts her above it all, blesses her with an easy escape. I watch her get on with her simple life. Later, she will curl up next to me, and we will be still. The only sound a little purr above my shouting heart. In a room where stillness doesn't come easily. On a day where I dread the news, each announcement a double-edged sword. And yet here we are, still life. I was really kind of bowled over that the committee liked this one poem that's like 35 years old. I wrote it in 1985, and it's the only poem that is not in the new collection, but I do have a couple of other books, one other book that it's in. This is called Oppenheimer 40 Years Later, and the thing about it is, you've maybe heard the idea of a found poem, where, you're walking down the street and something just goes, yeah, wow, I gotta write about that. Well, open the paper in Seattle in 1985, and there's this picture of Oppenheimer. And it is the most benign picture. It's like, you look at this guy and you think, really? He did this? And so I just meditated and read up on him, and this is how it turned out. I cannot get beyond the face in the photo. Are the large, languid eyes blue like a clear desert sky, or have they burned into the color of dust? There is a wide gap between the brows, a space large enough for a third eye. The eyes do not seem mad or brilliant, but if I look close enough, is that the radiance of 1,000 tears? The face is lean and polished, waxy and pale. There is little flesh. Does this man live on thought or particles of air like someone in a secret Indian sect? And this is from the paper. At the instant of detonation, he recalls fragments from the Bhagavad Gita. If the radiance of 1,000 suns were to burst at once into the sky, that would be like the splendor of the Mighty One. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. The ears are pointed and small, like an otter's. There is no flesh on the lobe. The cheekbones are low and delicate. No peasantry here. The lips are small and still. He is lighting a curved black pipe, a prized possession? The match burns into a small trinity lit by his huge, incongruous hands. Hands you wouldn't run from if the flame were large. Hands modeled like trout. Hands that light the furnace of the world. And from the paper. The early Spaniards called this region of wind and distance Jornada del Muerto, journey of death, or the route of the dead man. Oppenheimer had been reading John Donne's Holy Sonnets. Batter my heart, three-personed God, for you as yet but knock, breathe, and seek to mend. The chin and the forehead are regular, not strong. There is nothing wrong in the face. No hint of deformity, no extra skin, though the Adam's apple is sharp and the neck seems red and radiated. The thin white hair is closely cropped. The entire body seems to lean forward as though there was another large hand on the shoulder. Trinity, we'll call it Trinity, he said. I'm not sure I've ever read that poem out loud before after all these years. And it kind of takes us to that part of the world, New Mexico. And so this poem is entitled Convertible Mind on the High Road to Taos. And if you've never been on the high road to Taos, you've got to go. I mean, it's just unbelievable out there. Some mojo lurks in mesa shadows, unexpected darkness in the Sangre de Cristos, parched day, top down and burning, hanging around a mountaintop cemetery in a state that allows people to bury their dead on their own land with a wooden cross, where handmade motorcycles may grace a new grave. Jazzy angles like Shimeo wavings, disturbing clouds, low-hanging baskets, changing with each new crest of wind. Spanish missionaries must have had fierce thirst, dehydrated enough to hallucinate such bloody icons at the Sanctuario de Chamayo, stench of paraffin, decay, incense, rotting pine, nightmare of healing mementos clasped on chain link fence. So many crutches, such faith. Do you want to believe it's not a hoax? Do you want to believe in childlike faith that works miracles? The high road to Taos asks questions you thought you already answered. Feel the native presence, breath, and beat. Wisps of pinyon, purple sage, whipping Apache winds, rattling dusts and rocks, your sense of reason lifting out of you like a clay bowl emptying, where science loses its grip, your mind now open as the scalding sky. And I'm going to end with the Great River Road, because we're right on a river and that seems sort of appropriate, although it's not the same river, still the idea of the constant movement. This is the Great River Road. Driving north in Iowa, the Great River Road before us, the March thaw sprinkling sunlight on blue icy patches of river. We pass bridges and dams where eagles spend the winter fishing. Their huge nest rests in treetops that line the river's edge. Silver glints of river carp and beaks catch the sun's wink as the eagles carry on. When you think of resolution, how your life will fledge and wing despite threat of extinction or conflicts reaped upon the unsuspecting earth, think about the eagles who survived, their perseverance even in ill-advised slaughter, how they rose against the odds, catch fish as seasons turn. Think of the Mississippi River, its pilgrims and refugees on barges and boats, the current that leads on to a distant place, the promise of new life. Driving closer to Dubuque, we watch the hills grow jagged, past towns with names like Luxembourg, sheep peaceful on rocky hills, and that first spring green promise now springing forth.